Sorry, right? Dave Richards, CBS Sports, joining us right now. Your questions at 1-800-920-1140. We said this in the previous segment. I said Dave really, truly takes his picks seriously and cares about them. And when he gets one right, it's a feel-good. Well, I think when he gets one right, he's like, okay, I did my job. When he gets one wrong, I know it bothers him. He's not just like, man, whatever. It really bothers him. So it really does tickle me in a Pillsbury Doughboy type of way. It tickles me when he, what we call I like to call our annual Alpha Award. It's his preseason pick to click. And Isaiah McKenzie. I mean, he changed his hashtag, his Twitter name. And what happens? McKenzie has a touchdown last night. Dave made a lot of people happy, and he joins us right now to make it even more. I was so happy when he caught that touchdown. I was watching it with my friends, and I turned to one. I said, "That's my guy's pick." I'm so I shouted you out at my house while watching the game, as I'm sure thousands of people did that across the country. Friend, welcome in and take your victory lap. As I give him that.
He only had 2 catches. You got me?
Yeah, I got you now. He only had 2 catches. He had a touchdown, though.
Yeah, but you're looking for more than 9 PPR points from a dude. Let's be honest. He also caused an interception. No, there will be no victory lap today. Was I excited about that touchdown? Dude, it was almost the exact same route he ran in a preseason game, and he's mastered it. It's a little slant that he does right off the snap, and I don't know if there's a defensive back that can cover him on it. But if he had the targets that Jamison Crowder had on top of what he had, there would be victory lapping right now. We'd be really excited because we'd have somebody that we could look at as a flex receiver. But I think you just hold on to him right now. You're certainly not going to cut a guy that just scored a touchdown. But I wish he had played more. I wish he hadn't have bobbled the ball and caused an interception. But he's got some runway. He could get better than what he had last night.
Last night's our first offering, obviously, to see anything, Dave. And so if we go to the losing team, which was the Rams, and really got worked in that second half, but I can picture people have Matt Stafford as QB1. I don't know where they have Cam Akers or Allen Robinson, but those 3 did not look good. If you're owners of any of those 3, how do you play them going forward?
You're going to be patient with Stafford and Robinson for sure. You have to give that offensive line a chance to really gel. They've got a get-right matchup in week 2. Sean McVay said after the game that Allen Robinson needs to get more targets. They didn't bring him in to give him 1 target in the first 59 minutes and 30 seconds of a game against the Buffalo Bills. And he was getting open. I haven't watched all of the coaches' film yet, but I think what we'll see with Allen Robinson is a guy who just doesn't burn past defensive backs, but he can break away from them with physicality. He can do it with footwork, and he can make contested catches. They need to give him more of those because eventually teams are just going to be all over Cooper Kupp, and it's going to be tight window throw after tight window throw. The touchdown that Stafford threw to Kupp, that's a tight window throw. Another throw like right on the sideline that Stafford had to Kupp, tight window throws. They've mastered them, but you'd prefer to have them a little more open than that. And so one way the Rams can improve that type of coverage on Kupp is by getting Allen Robinson involved. Buy low on Allen Robinson. Now, you mentioned Cam Akers. Dave knows this. I was very worried about Cam Akers all offseason long. I needed to see or hear something that would make me believe that he was back. But being back doesn't mean just being back off the Achilles. He wasn't very efficient as a rookie. And the last time we really saw Cam Akers playing well, he was wearing Florida State colors. Yeah. And he was great at Florida State. And he had a nice little cutback on his it wasn't really a catch because it was thrown behind the line of scrimmage. But I think Akers is in trouble. I don't think he's going to be the every down guy for the Rams anytime soon. It certainly looks like Darrell Henderson's got that job until Henderson breaks down. But I'm not convinced that Akers is all the way back or ever will be all the way back from that injury that he sustained.
1-800-920-1140 if you have a question for Dave Richards of CBS Sports. Also 916-339-1140 if you want to text that in like this. Bill in Elk Grove wants to know. By the way, totally not me, guys. It's Bill in Elk Grove. He's back every year. Lamar Jackson versus the Jets. Dak Prescott versus Tampa Bay.
Lamar Jackson is my number 1 quarterback this week. Ranked ahead of Josh Allen. I feel stupid about it right now. But I'm very concerned about that run game for Baltimore. All offseason it was, well, the Ravens want to get back to running the football and being a very balanced run pass. Well, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that with a gimpy J.K. Dobbins, Kenyon Drake, who they just signed, and Mike Davis, who's, I think he's like 28 or 29 years old. I can't say he's a 30-year-old. I got to double check his age. Jackson's going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. You know he's going to run a ton. I think he's going to throw a lot too. This Jets secondary is improving, but they're not going to be great. I think Jackson takes advantage and has a huge week.
Dave, how about the Niners playing the Bears? What Niner plays do you have ranked high on your list this week?
I love Elijah Mitchell. When he did play last year, his average was 100 total yards a game, right on the nose. That's great. And he had a big game against Chicago last year. And that Bears defense is in transition, guys. I think you're going to see Eli Mitchell, as long as he's healthy, and he is right now, he's going to get fed the ball. And the 49ers need to do that because Trey Lance just isn't ready. I think he's capable of running a game plan, but just being asked to roll out there and dominate, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. I like Lance as a top 12 quarterback, but I like Stafford ahead of him. I like a bunch of other quarterbacks ahead of him. I think he's safe for about 23 fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Debo's going to be a start. I don't think Kittle's going to play. I don't think Ayuk is going to be that great. And that's really about it. Here's the one last thing I'll part with on this. If you've got Mitchell, start him, feel good about it, but get Jeff Wilson on your bench, will you? Yeah. Don't be a hamhead and not let that guy go on somebody else's bench. Put him on yours so that you've got that 49ers backfield locked up for when Eli Mitchell goes down with an injury.
Would you do the same thought on just following up on the Niners, store Jimmy G away somewhere, or just wait on waiver wires if he plays?
In a one-quarterback league, you can do better than Jimmy Garoppolo as your backup quarterback for Trey Lance, but you need to have somebody, at least right now. Hopefully, when you drafted Trey Lance, you took somebody like Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr. Maybe it was Stafford who you took with Trey Lance. Maybe you're sitting with Lance on your bench this week, and you're like, this is going to be gross. We'll see how Trey Lance does. In a two-quarterback league, by all means, get Garoppolo. If you missed him on draft day, trade something to get him. At some point this year, I'm afraid we are going to see Jimmy Garoppolo play.
Dave Richards joining us. Going to use Hamhead, by the way,
for
a long time. Yeah. Speaking of Elijah Mitchell, perfect timing because this guy, four-person league. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, or Elijah Mitchell can only start 3. So do you sit any of Montgomery, Barkley, or Henry for Elijah Mitchell?
Montgomery, yes. Barkley, they're back-to-back. Henry, hell no. You're starting Derrick Henry against the Giants.
Gotcha. And then when it comes to George Kittle, you mentioned that. So let's follow up there too. Because again, we're in the area. A lot of people are going to be Niner homers. That's fine.
Sure.
George Kittle's out. That if he is, then you have anybody you're looking at may or may not have been picked up that you might want to plug in?
One of my absolute favorite late round picks this year was David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. And a 60-year breakout, is that in the offing for this dude? It might be, because he's the number 2 target in that offense. I like him to get 5 or 6 catches. I think he can be pretty good. I think Evan Ingram's going to be available as well on the waiver wire. He'll have an opportunity against Washington. They're missing a safety in their secondary. That could open things up for him. Hunter Henry could come down with a touchdown. Mike Gesicki in Miami might be out there in your league. You can get any of those guys and use them ahead of George Kittle, but I would make the move to get one of those guys now and not wait until Sunday, because it looks like George Kittle's not going to play, and you don't want somebody else in your league to beat you to Njoku, Ingram, Henry, or Gesicki.
Dave, you were talking about how you had Lamar Jackson ranked number 1 this week, so you kind of do your weekly rankings. Is there someone that you have elevated higher this week that normally is probably someone's 3rd running back, 4th running back, 4th or 5th receiver, someone that you're like, okay, this is the week to play this guy?
I think this is the week for Juju Smith-Schuster. One of the theories that I worked with all offseason was that the Chiefs will formulate a game plan week to week for the receivers based on who they're playing. And the matchup against Arizona, I think, is favorable for Juju. Arizona plays a lot of zone coverage. I think Juju can only beat zone coverage. So he's one guy that I like a lot. I've got him ranked in PPR ahead of Mike Williams with the Chargers, which is pretty lofty. And Jalen Waddle's another guy. Amon-Ra St. Brown, another guy that I have ranked behind Juju Smith-Schuster. I'll give you another receiver, and you won't believe this one. It's a Jets receiver.
What?
It's Elijah Moore. And I think Joe Flacco loves himself some Elijah Moore. We know that they connected. I think 31 is the number. It was more than 30 for sure. 31% of Joe Flacco's throws last year went to Elijah Moore, and he had a game with Moore, 11 targets, 8 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. And it was against the Dolphins, and the Dolphins had a really good defense last year. I think Elijah Moore is good enough to break away from Ravens coverage this year, and I think Flacco is going to find him quite a bit. So Moore is another one of those receivers that you might have drafted as a number 3 or a flex, but you should start him ahead of him.
Last thing for Dave Richards, CBS Sports. It's interesting you mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was kind of like my little favorite guy throughout all my drafts. Everyone picks that guy every year. I loved him last year. And then Juju Smith-Schuster's another guy that was really intriguing. I got a little scared. I think a lot of people did too at Patrick Mahomes' comments, like, sorry, fantasy guys, it's going to be – you don't seem to be incredibly worried about that. And then part 2, aside from that, independent of Smith-Schuster, what are your thoughts on St. Brown this year?
I think it's going to be a week-to-week thing with all the wide receivers in Kansas City until one elevates himself to be great against all coverage and the Chiefs find a way to get on the ball. I think that receiver will eventually be Sky Moore. I don't think it's going to be that way now. It's up to you if you want to kind of be patient with Sky Moore. If you drafted him, you probably will.
Sure.
As for St. Brown, I think he's perfect for what the Lions offense is. I think you're going to continue to see him get a bunch of targets. This is a really tough matchup for him against Philadelphia. Probably won't see a tough matchup like this, probably for at least 1, 2, 3, 4 at mid-season. I think when he takes on the Packers in the middle of the year, that might be his next toughest matchup. So take your lumps with St. Brown this week, but then expect him to get around 13, 14 PPR points per week after that. Where
can people see you, hear you, touch you, dream about you? Where can they get themselves some Dave Richards?
Dave, I'm worried about what you're doing at night. You can see me and hear me on Fantasy Football Today. It's going to be live at 9 a.m. your time on CBSSportsHQ.com or free on the CBS Sports app. And I've been telling you for years that we've been doing DFS stuff on Friday. Not anymore. We're previewing games. We're dishing on our favorite player props. And yeah, maybe a DFS pick here and there, but it's going to be much more fantasy-centric with a twist on player props for everybody who's interested. It starts at 9 a.m. out there in NorCal on CBSSportsHQ.com.
Every Friday, the best in the business right here at 7 at 27. Dave Richards. Enjoy the weekend, my friend, and we'll talk to you next week. Welcome back.
It'll be glorious. Welcome back football, indeed.
Yes, take care. That's Dave Richards. Not taking a victory lap.
Nope.
He
has higher standards.
Yeah. You know what? Good for him. That's what you get.